Alright, right now I'm going to introduce you to lot number 6. I personally believe that this is quite a unique collectible and it has quite a sensation, quite a mystery within it. Let me explain. First of all, we're going to be talking about this particular painting I'm showing. And it's by Aert de Gelder. It's a 17th century Dutch painter. You're going to see information about him in a second. And he's the last student and one of the best students of Rembrandt. Now, dear investors, please think about this and about the potential that this particular painting has. I'll give you information about this painter in just a second for you to see for yourself and to make sure that it does have high potential for an investor. Because, just the fact that it mentions Rembrandt, the fact that they're united and connected, means that its price characteristics and its value are out the roof, out the top. You're not going to find Rembrandt for sale, and this is his best student who actually traveled with Rembrandt and was with him during the last years of the great painter's life. All right, take a look at the information about this painter. Before I show you a series of photographs or a video of this particular painting, I want to tell you just a tad about actually European life and Jewish life, and particularly about Esther, who is depicted here. Not the bride, but she's actually Esther bedecked, or so tell us art historians and art connoisseurs. And Aert de Gelder dedicated a whole series of paintings to the Jewish theme, to the Jewish topic. Specifically, he painted about Esther, what she was like in her youth, what she was like as a bride, what she was like as an older lady. And these particular paintings are depicted, are shown, presented in the leading museums across the world in various countries. For example, such a country, a copy or even a smaller copy, there is an analogous, a similar painting at the München Pinakothek picture gallery in Bavarian. Alright, now take a look at this information and about the level, the rank of value, and how much actually this European topic about Esther is really valued at across the world at different museums. Take a look. So basically, in showing you this, what I would like to emphasize that de Gelder's paintings are presented in the top-notch museums across the world, and that is what I'm underscoring here for the prospect or for the potential buyer. Really note this, pay attention to this slide here. Alright, now the time has come to give you a slideshow of this particular painting, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. And then after, I would like to talk a bit about why it is attractive to the investor and why it is attractive and profitable from the investment viewpoint. Alright, so now I would like to talk a little bit about the history of this painting. It has a relatively interesting storyline, particularly about how we actually received information about this painting and how we figured out if it's the painting or a copy that's in Munich at the Bavarian Gallery, at the Regal Gallery actually. You see there is a modern gallery in Bavaria, and there is an older picture gallery, the Royal Picture Gallery, the Pinakothek it's called. That's really important. So, we have a stamp, a seal on our painting. That's important, and it has a seal of this old picture gallery. That's an important, super important nuance, because it brings down to zero any potential criticism that this is a counterfeit, that it's false, that it's not bona fide, etc. Please take a look at the seal once again. Alright, so when we actually received information about this Royal Pinakothek, this picture gallery, the old collection, and about how these paintings were actually chased after, and they were chased after by none other than the Hitlerian dogs and spies and, his representatives and so forth. You may know that he was actually a rabid aficionado, Hitler was, of the traditional school of master painters. So, this seal, this particular seal, tells us that this painting is indubitably belongs to the Regal Pinakothek, the Royal Pinakothek collection. Naturally, we carried out some studies and evaluations on our own. We talked to certain specialists. And what is it that we studied? You saw the photo session, right, of the painting, where we actually give you magnified photographs of different paint layers and also the composition. That's something that we studied, the content, the composition, and the canvas, specifically the canvas. And when you study such materials, when we did this, this allowed us to convincingly and certainly say that this is an old canvas. And it is very similar to the canvases used by the old Dutch school of master painters. And secondly, the paint itself also coincides specifically to all the traits and characteristics of this old Dutch school of painting. And Aert de Gelder belonged to that school. Therefore, after we obtained this information, we went to a research institute in München. We sent them all the information. We told them that we had such a painting. We told them this. For a very long time, we had no response. And finally, the director itself, and that's actually ridiculously interesting. Why? Because normally clients, private clients or collectors they don't get replies necessarily. So the artwork, for us to get some sort of response, had to be brought physically there to the Munich Research Institute, right, to the gallery. We just sent them photographs, so the fact that he answered was amazing. At first we were surprised by this response, but then we realized that there was an amazingly intriguing factor here. And normally all the salespeople, all the auction houses chase after this particular fact. They need mystery, they need an intrigue, right? And here we naturally got this. We received this element, this intrigue factor, this mystery factor, which definitely increases interest to the painting and absolutely also augments the market value of this particular artistic piece of the Dutch School of Painters. Now, please take a look at this response and then I'll comment. So I'm commenting briefly on this letter from Munich, and it comes from the director of this research and scientific institute in Munich. This is actually a whole group of consultants, very authoritative experts as far as painting goes, and as far as Dutch painting goes specifically. They gave very convincing proof, and I'm going to replicate it here for you briefly. The first thing that is actually hard to imagine It's hard to imagine that the seal was from the old royal Pinacoteca. And somehow the canvas magically was preserved, and they put the seal directly on the canvas. And the canvas dates back to the 17th century. I presented certain photo materials from that canvas and a magnified photograph. And we're actually willing to present, the threads, the filaments, whatever is necessary, the weaving of the canvas were necessary to present this, and it actually does correspond specifically to the old Dutch production style, and the canvases that were used by the Dutch painters. This is factor number one. So, if we suppose that this seal was actually placed, this royal stamp was placed on a somehow magically preserved canvas, and then that somehow 19th or 20th century painters painted on this would be, nonsense, baloney. This just isn't logical. This couldn't happen, right? So I'm talking based out of evaluations of a whole plethora of serious experts, and we're actually ready to and willing to turn this information over to any potential serious prospect. All right, let's keep going. The last Bavarian king, and actually he is the persona specifically who was able to place this royal seal. He was Louis III. And I'm going to give you a link to this particular king. He was part of that regal dynasty, royal dynasty, and it was in 1921. So if the seal could even be placed, then definitely it had to be before 1921. Definitely couldn't be in the middle of the 20th century. So please take a look at this link. I would like to emphasize the inference and the conclusion that the majority of our evaluators, authoritative experts, came to. Specifically, they were also material experts, and they concluded that this painting is by Aert de Gelder, a Dutch painter, one of the most successful and serious students that Rembrandt had, that it was rendered in the 17th century, that it is a copy, or it is an original perhaps, and perhaps the Munich Museum has a copy, who knows? Why am I saying this? We actually inquired at the Munich Museum, and we never got a response. The question is, how many paintings have a seal similar to ours, right? About the fact that this particular canvas, you know what I'm talking about. I doubt that an untrue and non-bona fide canvas would have a seal on it, right? And we never received a response. So we asked them a very specific but a very simple concrete question. Is there a seal on the painting that is right now currently at the Munich Gallery and is supposedly the original by Aert de Gelder as a Jewish bride painting? And we never got a response. So here we get a very interesting mystery, right? I'm emphasizing once again, it's not necessarily that it has a scandalous hue or a scandalous nuance to it, no, but different sellers or different successful art dealers, they're always looking for scandals in order to attract attention. We don't need to look for things necessarily. We don't need scandals as such, but the very fact of this in existence, the very fact that we wrote such a letter, it does give a certain intrigue, a certain interest to the painting. All right, here's one more thing I'd like to say. Our painting is 100 by 125 centimeters, while the Munich painting is much, much bigger. It's up to 2 meters, actually. I think it's something like 1.60 centimeters by 2 meters. So take a look at the next slideshow. It has the dimensions. So I can tell you for sure that at this point, today, this painting is a very, very attractive particle, collectible for investment, and even for the collector to keep. Especially if we're talking about collectors who collect Jewish theme paintings. For us, it's a whole, treasure trove. It's a whole Klondike, figuratively speaking. And this particular painting, for example, was once promoted by Queen Elizabeth when she was young. It's being promoted on various brochures, on various magazines. I'm just going to give you a link in a second that talks about how much demand it has and how much popularity from the viewpoint of the current art community. Alright, and now I'm going to describe why it is that I believe that this painting actually has rather significant investment potential. So, first of all, if somebody is interested in the history of this painting, how it came about, we have several clips on my channel describing this. And when we first published these clips, and when we first described this painting, when I outlined the story, there was a possibility, there was sort of a hint that this painting could have been rendered by Vermeer, the painter. And at that moment, somebody contacted me, one of my acquaintances, and right away he offered me €1.5 million for the painting. I refused, I declined at the moment. We didn't have the painting ascribed, we weren't sure where it came from, it wasn't studied. But we were supposing that it might have been done by Vermeer. Possibly. Another very prominent painter. Actually, a very, very eminent painter. Okay. Now, why am I saying this? This is why we're actually starting it out at the starting bid of €1.5 million. And that's the starting bid. And I'm hoping that the fact that when I declined this back then, possibly this person will see that we'll see this lot once again, and we'll have something of an auction with this very painting, with other people and the same prospect who wanted to buy it back then, 1.5 years ago. But right now, my dear investors, I would like to focus your attention on this one fact. I would like to point out that this is actually nothing. This price, €1.5 million, is nothing in comparison to what is being sold on the market. Things actually that I criticize, and anybody who is in their right and sound mind would criticize this paint. I'm talking about abstract art that is actually sold and bought for hundreds, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. I'd like you to take a look for yourself and, the sort of daubs and blobs by Pollock and others, and compare it actually to this wonderful sublime painting, or take a look at black squares of various sorts or other abstract art. It doesn't matter which way you hang it, it's still a black square. You decide what it is you want to acquire. So now you have seen lot number 6, a painting by Aert de Gelder, one of the best students and one of the last students of the great Rembrandt. And today this painting is up for sale, and the starting bid is €1.5 million. Thank you.